All right. So this is related to your psychotic break. The question is, do you feel that the occurrence of a psychotic break is somehow related to feeling stifled by the societal norms or tradition or culture, some code that you're meant to follow?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Um, I think every mental illness is had some root in that. So that includes like psychosis because I think a psychosis only really happens if somebody has issues that haven't really been dealt with, and like it's like energy building up inside of you and has to release in some way. And so one way for that to happen would be through psychosis, you know. If somebody doesn't really have issues and like everything's, I mean, I don't know, like I'd have to do more research on it, but I think it definitely has a big play in it because I think people with a lot of mental health issues are more likely to have a psychotic break than somebody who doesn't have depression, doesn't have anxiety, things like that. um, I mean, that's just my take on it. I could be wrong, but yeah.
The reason why I ask you this, Hayden, is a lot of psychotic people, they put a lot of emphasis on the event that that caused the psychotic break. So before the event, they were normal. And then this huge sort of ceremonious event occurred in their life. And they attribute a lot of emphasis on this, that this thing or this reason is why we became psychotic. And then, so there's pre-psychosis, then there is that event, and then there's post-psychosis. But the reason I'm asking you this is, I think there are more things to it. Like, we already feel stifled by a lot of things. Like, even in my participants, there were a lot of stressors. Somebody sort of lost their mother and broke up with their partner right before they went into psychosis, drug into psychosis again. But I tried to sort of help them reflect that maybe it wasn't just the event, or like you smoked way too much weed on that particular day, and because of that something happened. Would you agree that it's not just that event, or do you still put a lot of emphasis on the particular psychotic break or the event that happened?
I mean, it's a lot of things. It's never, you can never pin it down to one thing, you know. Um, it's it's a huge, it's a bunch of different things. So usually it's more than just one aspect, you know. Yeah.
Right. uh, but do you, I mean, do you remember the exact moment the change occurred between you being completely not having symptoms of psychosis and having psychosis, like the moment it happened? Or do you remember that particular day? Do you put a lot of emphasis on it? Like, is it a big memory, like a monster, or something that you uh, haven't dealt with after it happened?
No, I mean, there's always like a trigger point. I think for everybody there's like a point where they like cross the threshold. So both of my experiences were, there was stuff that led up to it, and then there was an actual trigger point that triggered it. So I remember, I mean, DMT was the first one, and then the second one was having an intense connection with the with a girl that I was talking with at the time, and
Okay.
so that was, you know, the trigger for the second one.
Right.
So yeah.
uh I mean, because I'm also asking a question, I would you want me to share my first psychotic experience with you?
It's up to you, you know.
I really do. Like, nobody talks to me. I don't have friends, Aiden. So but I really would want to. It's a, I mean, it's an experience that I have tried to deconstruct. But if I had the insight from somebody else, it'd be really great. And
Okay.
just look at it like a fellow researcher, trying to understand what might have happened. So
Okay.
again, I was doing bachelor's of civil engineering, right? Not interested in the course. Had my
Mhm.
own band. We were covering uh, progressive metal bands, Rage Against the Machine, Tool. We were covering songs from those bands, and I was
Mhm.
the guitar player. And I mean, we'd smoke up before the session, and it would be like a really otherworldly experience in the jam room and all of that. We really
Mhm.
thought, I mean, I personally thought I had superpowers, and it led to a lot of other things.
Mm.
So the bass player that I was living with was a really he was a bully, and he bullied me a lot. Like he treated me like a subhuman creature almost,
Mm.
and scold me, shout at me. I was very sweet. I'd make sandwiches for him in the morning. He'd eat those sandwiches and shout at me, and
Mm.
like treat me like shit. And there's this
Mm.
other guy who was he had been playing the bass for 2 years. I had been playing the guitar for 7 years till then. And
Mm.
the drummer that we had been playing drums for just as long, 7 or 8. He could
Mm.
play progressive metal, so he was the most talented of us all.
Mm.
And he never stood up for me in front of the guy when he was like bullying me and all of that, scolding me, threatening me. But he'd show me some compassion after we are alone, and have something, and he's just like that, don't pay any heed to him and things like that. While in the jam room, because we were the two experienced people, we would dominate, and the guy wouldn't say anything in the jam room, right? But outside of it, he'd be like, uh, I tolerate you because you're good here and all of that, and then start bullying again.
Mm.
So I started doing horse tranquilizers on my own, and didn't do drugs. I mean, I'd smoke weed with them, but once they left, I'd start taking antidepressants and all of that. I started enjoying isolation. And
Mm.
so in this particular, I'm talking about the moment when I changed from like a normal person to a psychotic person. It
Mm.
was so I had gotten horse tranquilizers. Okay, I had lit up candles in my room, and I had connected my guitar amplifier to a certain track you can listen to on ketamine. Like you don't really pay attention to lyrics; it has to be like a droning track with drums and all.
Mm.
And I was a homophobic person,
Mm.
so I was misconstruing this person's compassion for advances. He had a girlfriend, I had a girlfriend, we both had girlfriends, but I don't know, somehow I didn't like being touched. I didn't like being, I wasn't comfortable. And because he didn't stood up for me in front of the guy, I thought this is something weird. So but I respected him as a musician. So in that ritual, what I did was I imagined, okay, so there was this moment where I don't know how to dance, but I thought and it was a auspicious week. Like there were 20 to 30 people, they wear a certain mm, shade of cloth, and they go for, I don't know what you call it. It's like a ceremonious thing, a
Mm.
religious occasion. So it was happening side by side. And
Mm.
in my room, I was tripping on the ketamine, and I woke up. I don't know how to dance, but I started almost doing like a tribal sort of dance, and I felt somebody else was inside of me, and I had this out of body experience, like who is this person who's dancing, and I was imagining the communion of me and the drummer, like into a body, two bodies covered in barbed wires, almost like a very intense communion. And I drew from the fact that language and everything, all of these things, they fail us. And I imagined two early men, one beating on a rock and the other one just singing or playing whatever he had. And I was like, I pledge allegiance to you, brother, and I'm not going to marry, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to work. I pledge allegiance to you, and we're going to like express our souls like this, even though I'm homophobic, I don't care. And I pledge communion to you and all of that. And I shouted. And once I shouted, I felt, oh shit, this is something that I cannot go back now. And I felt everyone, because I made it so almost dramatic. I thought I have asked eyes to be on me, and now they've witnessed a miracle, because somebody else came in my body and used it, and we did this ritual to sort of
Mm.
celebrate the communion and all of that. So I felt, oh shit, now I can't go back. And ever since then, I had the delusions. And of course, are you familiar with thought broadcasting?
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about it, right? Yeah. So
Mm.
since ever since then, I also have started having thought broadcasting, and because of that, so I do it. The whole experience was a monster for me. I mean, of course, later on I did try to decode it, but I do pay a lot of emphasis on it, because I think maybe if I did things differently, if instead of the amplifier I was wearing headphones, if I didn't snort ketamine and just smoked a pot and read a book and slept, maybe things wouldn't have been. But of course, I don't have the answer to it. I don't know if it was that, or of course I had underlying problems. I was a pariah. I don't have friends in college. I didn't relate to them. They were not creative people. Like studying from obsolete books about engineering structures and dams or all that, I'm not interested. And the people I relate with were, one was bullying me and the other one was being too nice to me, like.
Mhm.
So the once I came out of it, I said, stay away from me. I don't know. I was homophobic, right? And it's very natural here in my country. So I did say something to hurt him, to just like, stay away from me. Okay. I don't like this. And I sort of indicated that you're a gay person, stay away from me, and things like that. And ever since then, the band broke up. Of course, I went to the rehab. He was one of my best friends. And, he really, like, was talented, and I really felt something while playing. And I know he was not gay, neither was I, and I'm not homophobic anymore. But I haven't been able to make amends. It's been, I don't know, it's been 4 or 5 years. So yeah, I mean, I do still lay a lot of emphasis on to that event. Do you think, I mean, it's not just the event, right? I'm crazy if I say, if I did things differently, I wouldn't have had. What do you think? Do you think it's more than that? It's more underlying issues, or do you uh,
I don't know. It's like I said, it could be a lot of different things, like it could be just the drugs, it could have been underlying issues, it could have been, there's no way really to know. That's where like scientific data would be the only thing that could really tell us what could cause it, because there's a lot of variables. It's not like you can just narrow it down to like one or two things unless you have like a bunch of data to basically supplement. Like in all of these cases, these were the major factors. But usually with psychosis, there's like major stressors and then there's a trigger. That's what I've seen. So it could be psychological stress, it could be physiological stress, it could be any kind of stress really, but something that makes life difficult, and then something that makes the experience pop. So it could be it could be drugs, it could be like another stressful event. Like some people go into a psychosis like when they're being like when they're in like a state of abuse or a state of trauma, they'll flip out. So it could be anything. It just depends on what's the trigger for that individual. Like for me, it was drugs for sure. Because both times it was cannabis that sort of led me down that path, and then eventually the trigger happened and I was gone. So the second time was more gradual. It wasn't just instant, but cannabis definitely played a role for sure.
have you ever had an experience where you, through your own volition, have put yourself in a psychotic state, like without any substance? Has it? I think it has happened once or twice with me, where I, like in my psychosis, I groove to music and get really into it, or I know the patterns of thought that I start, I might trigger it, and I did it deliberately, and I got into a psychotic state without any substance. And then I sort of self-medicated myself. I told my friend, let's go and have some alcohol. So it sort of tranquilizes you and brings you down, and the next day was okay, like I went back to normal. But have you ever triggered your psychosis without anything, just by your own?
I really like triggered psychosis per se, but um, sorry, I'm still sleepy from a nap.
Right.
Um, I don't know. I've had scares where I feel like I got scared that I might be having like might be coming into a psychosis. Like most of my life, I've been like anxious and depressed, and so when I wasn't feeling that way, when I started feeling not depressed and not anxious, I was worried that I was going into another psychosis, because every time that I went into a psychosis, I stopped feeling anxious and depressed. But then I went too far, you know. So
Right.
I just had a scare recently, like, I was talking to my girlfriend and stuff, and I'm like, I'm not. I feel like I have a lot of energy, like I'm really creative, and like I'm in this different headspace. Like I'm worried that it's psychosis, and she's like, it's probably not. You're probably just being paranoid. And then I just went to sleep the next day, and I was fine. But I definitely have scares like that. I've never induced a psychosis like without drugs. So
Mm. I mean, if
yeah,
this is any reassurance, Hayden, uh, when you do have like a severe mental illness, or like a severe mental sort of experience, everything is termed in terms of symptoms, so if I have things like I have job openings coming up for me, or I get through a scholarship and I'm excited, I want to invest some money in a project or whatever, I am excited, but you bound to see it as mania. Is he manic now? Or like,
right,
if you're pensive, if you're thinking about something, or writing your project or whatever, and you're in deep thought, you're not talking much, you're like, is he going back into depression? Is he
right,
Everything is a symptom instead of the person, their personality themselves. So I think
right.
you have to sort of cut yourself some slack in some terms, like, if that's any help. uh yeah, I mean, it's difficult as it is, man, like, there's no need to uh we are very hard on ourselves, so I just say, like, if this is any sort of help, then
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with it. Like I feel like I'm fine. I'm not worried. It's just, that's
yeah.
something I experienced. So
Right. All right. Should I move on to the next question?
sure.
Okay. So a lot of people look at people with uh, psychotic disorders as suffering. Now, do you think psychotic people, while they are going through psychosis, have a different understanding of their experiences? And would you call it suffering?
Yeah. We definitely have a different understanding of the experience compared to the outside. Because the outside, like anybody looking in on psychosis who hasn't experienced it themselves, doesn't really understand like where that person is and what they're experiencing because they're just seeing the symptoms on the outside. It's sort of like if you watch someone tripping on mushrooms or you watch someone tripping on LSD, it's gonna look kind of freaky to people watching on the outside because they do things that like what the fuck are they doing? Like that looks really weird. Like they're acting like you know weird. Like what's going on? But they're having like a magical experience or they're having a really scared experience. But it looks different to the person watching. Just like in psychosis, that person's having an internal experience and it may be manifesting as like yelling and screaming or like thrashing or saying like weird things but like their internal experience may be different from what it's perceived as on the outside because somebody may be perceived to be having a scary experience um in like if someone's on mushrooms or something but they could be having a very magical beautiful experience on the inside. um so that's Yeah, I mean, my mom was really scared for me and like didn't really know what was going to happen, but I wasn't really worried about myself. I felt like I knew where I was and I had an understanding of where I was. I mean, we're obviously delusional, so like we like have a different perception on our own state. But I wasn't too worried about me, but my mom was much more worried about me than I was. Yeah.
Um, okay. I'm just gonna shoot questions now. Enough of me interrupting your flow. Okay, moving on. Do you feel there is something wrong with our approach towards recovery for a psychotic person? Like, are there spaces that are accommodating for a psychotic person?
Um, that's something that I've thought about for a while because it's like it's hard to kind of like what would be an accommodating space. I mean, the biggest thing is for them to have a space where they're not going to hurt any other people and they're not going to hurt themselves because that's a risk. Like I don't care what people tell me. Like some people are like, oh, it's like these states are mystical experiences. They need to like let them have it and stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, like some people who are in psychosis like jump out of windows because they think they can fly, or they attack somebody because if they attack this person, it's going to save the world. So it's like, yeah, that's great that you think it's a mystical experience and that's going to be all good, but like some people won't do those things, but others will. So it's like, how do you differentiate who's going to do that and who's not? You can't. There's no way to know. So it's like, make sure that they're safe, make sure that other people are safe. But other than that, I mean, there's not much you can do. You can maybe give them, um, I mean, that's something that like needs to be discussed and examined like scientifically to figure out like what's the best conducive environment for someone going through one of these kinds of experiences. They definitely need some kind of support, some person to like sort of guide them through the process, preferably someone who's like been through it before. That would be important. But I don't know. That's my take. You know, having someone supervise and then just making sure they're safe. That's the biggest thing because no matter where they are, no matter what's in front of them, they're gonna go through whatever journey they're gonna go through without. If they have nothing, they're still gonna go through a journey. Is even if, like they're out in nature or whatever, or if they're like enclosed on their own, like they'll have different experiences, but they're still gonna be on a journey. You know, that's the way I see it. So
Okay.
yeah.
Just another addition to that question. So I think a lot of the pressure that we take while we are in our psychotic states is hiding a secret or hiding information or not having avenues to sort of openly talk about certain things, right? That's why even if you know that this person is trying to help me, you in order to cue them in, you give them metaphors or you give them ciphers to decode or like try to get to an understanding. Hey, I can't really say the whole thing, but I hope you get it, and you do. Like, you've given me an indication that you do, so I would tell you. But what if there were spaces where somebody told you, okay, there's no boundaries, whatever it is you feel, I mean, the world is going to disintegrate if you come out with that information, you say it, we'll see, you're not responsible, or something, like a space where you can completely share whatever's going through your head. Do you think that could improve recovery, or like that could intense I mean, it could either intensify your experience or improve your recovery without, of course, medication is important, I'm also not against medication, but I feel while you're going through medication, there's also medication. See, in psychosis is what I feel. Okay, in psychosis, you have a ton of problems, but you learn to navigate through those problems, you develop skills to work through those problems. What medication does is, okay, I'm taking away these problems, but I'm going to give you these new problems that you have no clue how to navigate them, like
Right.
that's why you have depression. So I'm saying this medication is giving me newer problems, and nobody's guiding me to understand that things are going to change or you're going to have new problems. So just this guide who also tells me, nothing is out of bounds, you can say anything, there's no, you will not cause a huge destruction, or we are trying to be martyrs, we're trying to save something, you just some, okay, it's saved, it's okay, you are not. If you had that, do you think that would be better, like, for recovery?
Yeah, I mean that's why I said that it would be important to have someone to like guide them or someone to be there to like help them with that experience because the part of the recovery process is like coming out of the psychosis, which like includes medication, but another part is like how do you deal with the situation? How do you um someone needs to help them because someone needs to listen to their story and understand like what's happening, not just giving them medication and just letting them figure it out on their own. Like there's still a human having an experience. So all humans need support. So ideally, we would have someone who can support us, who understands these states, who hasn't just studied chemistry their whole life,
Right,
which is
right.
what the psychiatrists are.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, I agree.
I think I've asked you this before, Hayden. So if I have, just tell me I have already answered this and we'll move on. The question is, do you think the medical professionals should respect our agency? What, according to you, is an ideal patient psychologist or patient psychiatrist relationship for a psychotic person?
It's super hard. It's really complicated because basically, someone who's in a psychotic state isn't in a state of mind to be making choices for themselves because um, they they don't know what they're saying. Like one person may think that they need to take like a bunch of medication because if they're medicated, then they're gonna save the world, or they're gonna help the humanity, and so they're like, yeah, give me like the strongest dose of medication. Or somebody else might be like, no, I don't need medication. I'm like this, mystical person who has an enlightened experience. I don't need medication. You need to understand me. So it's like, uh, it's really hard because I've experienced myself where like I said something to a psychiatrist when I was having one of my psychosis experiences, and then she changed my medications because of that, based on what I said in that state. But it wasn't accurate of actually how I was feeling at that time. It was just that I was in a psychotic state, and so I said something, and she changed the medication, because I was delusional at the time.
Right.
So it's like navigating that relationship is like really, really hard, especially when it comes to medication. And
Yeah,
yeah,
because yeah, I understand.
because yeah, you're basically like dealing with somebody who is not who can't make decisions for themselves. You know,
Yeah. Do you think there's a self-destructive streak in psychosis as well? Like, you do things to harm yourself and you start taking pleasure in it, or it's not so common. Like it's like
no, I don't think so.
okay,
Some people might. I think it just depends on the person. Like, I did something in the hospital my first time where I like stab my finger with a needle because I thought it was something that I need to do. I thought that was important for helping something. For some reason I did it because there was pain. But I just like pushed through it. So
yeah.
I don't know. It's
Yeah, but I do get the flip side of us being like having agency over our treatment, because if they are making decisions or of our treatment based on the information and we give them, and we are not giving them the correct information because we are paranoid and we don't trust them, it's I mean, it's difficult. I understand what you're
yeah.
trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah, but I also think that like our voice should be taken in consideration because when they did take my when they did change my medication, I had a really bad response to it. Like I had a very bad physiological response, and it was like very, very unpleasant, like painful. Like the experience on that medication was not fun. And when they were dismissing me from the hospital, because I only been on the new medication for like a day or two, I told them I'm not taking that medication. Like it was literally painful, for me to take. And as they were dismissing me, he was like, "You need to take this medication. Like this is what was prescribed to you." And I'm like, "No, you don't understand. Like it was not fun. Like I understand like what you're saying, but like you're not listening to me as a person. You're only listening. You see me as someone who's sick. You don't see me as someone who has can make their own decisions." And so that felt very frustrating because he was viewing me as a psychotic person, whereas I was expressing to him that what I experienced was painful, and he was disregarding that and saying that I needed to take that medication regardless of how I felt. And so that was very frustrating. And I told him, I'm not taking it, but I'll take the other medication that I was on before, but not the stuff that like you say I need to take.
Right.
So, because I was not in a psychotic state at that point.
Right.
Uh, so it's really hard because it's hard to know when someone's psychotic or when someone's not.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not it's not very clear and cut. That's why I hate it when people like mystify psychosis. They're like, oh, like it's this magical, beautiful, mystical experience. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
no. Like, yes, there are some things happening, but
I mean, see, you gotta salvage whatever you get, right? I mean, it's kind of like this. The analogy that you gave last time. I mean, you're thrown in the middle of the ocean. Now you wouldn't want somebody to do that to you, but then whatever experience you have, you try to salvage good things out of it. Because
right,
of
right,
course, I've got to, like, all of that has to be again the same thing. Like it has to be something I learned, something was there, all of that.
right,
And yeah, so I get what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Uh, okay. So this is the next question. Do you feel that your symptoms have meaning? And were the psychotic episodes also something you were seeking, or were they an unsavory part of understanding your symptoms? Okay. So this is, it's poorly worded. I'll maybe elaborate on a little bit. So if you feel your symptoms have meaning, you try to understand. what those symptoms mean. And in that procedure, you have psychotic episodes. Those are not the things that are savory part of it. But if you believe that your symptoms have meaning, you do try to uncover why you have those symptoms. So did you also do that uncovering? Like, did you try to understand why this is happening, or you just try to sort of ignore it or stay away or just deal with it?
So my first priority when I was recovering from psychosis was just to come back down to a place where I could actually work with things, because like it's impossible to kind of work and figure out what's going on if you're in a psychotic state, because like there's no ground, there's no footing to work on. Like it's sort of like what we were talking about earlier, where like the only way you can really look back on your experience and get anything out of it is like when you've come back down and you have your feet on the ground. So that was my first focus, was getting back down. Then once I got back down, then I could be like, okay, like is sort of this sort of makes sense. This one doesn't make sense. This is just like random stuff. And that's when sort of you can piece together and figure out like what was real and what was just random stuff. But like I think that I don't know. It's hard to know like what, if the symptoms have meaning per se or not. Um, I mean, I've had experiences that have changed the way I perceive the world, but I don't know if they like have specific meaning, you know?
Okay, I'll skip a few questions and go on to a question which will help you answer
Okay.
this one. Okay,
Okay,
and
sure.
it's interesting. Wait, okay. By the way, I got in touch with this psychoanalyst who I'm going to quote, and I was like, I want to dedicate my life to psychosis research, and what should I do? And she just sent me like a mail saying, "All the best, man. Just all the best with your endeavor." She did like guide me or anything. I said, I want to work with you and things like all the best, dude. Just rock it. Anyway, so not staying away from the thing. Dr. Daniel Nafo, she's a psychoanalyst in the US,
Mhm.
says psychosis, and she really gets psychosis. Like if I mean, you are in the US, right? If she's not far off and if she's affordable, my God, she's got a 1.5 hour video on YouTube, where she describes work with psychotic people. Bloody amazing. I'll send you a link. Okay. I mean,
Yeah, send me a link. I'd love to watch.
yeah, sure. Okay. So Dr. Daniel Nafo says that psychosis is an attempt to adapt. No, wait, this is not. Okay, yeah. Again, this is something that Dr. Daniel Nafo said. Many think that there is a person hidden underneath the psychosis, underneath the psychotic symptoms that need to come out. But according to Dr. Daniel Nafo and a few other psychologists, the person is revealed in their psychotic symptoms and not hidden. More of what the person is, those things are exaggerated in the psychotic symptoms, and it's not like the symptoms are hiding the person within them. It's like, no, this is, I was wearing a fake sort of facade, and that I have gotten rid of, and this is the real me. Which one do you think is more accurate picture of psychosis? Your real expression is who you are in your psychosis, or it's, well, it's getting rid of the fake self, or it's the real self is before psychosis, and in psychosis you get hidden underneath those symptoms.
No, I think the more a true self comes out during the psychosis, because like your inhibitions kind of get removed. So like the things that you were normally afraid to do are normally like um, repressed before you start to do. Because I started doing like random acts of kindness, like during my psychosis. I like bought bread and like brought it to sort of a community area that I was a part of, and I was more it sort of the stuff that I was afraid to do before I did. Like I set boundaries for myself, and like somebody started like pushing on me hard, I was able to like be like, well, that's not like true, you're not being fair and stuff like that. So it's sort of the things that like I wanted to do, but I was too afraid to before, and that sort of came out during my psychosis.
So then going back to the question before this, like your symptoms, then they do have meaning, right? They reveal who you actually are. When in your psychosis, you express yourself through your symptoms, and what you're saying is our actual self is revealed when we are in a psychotic state. So they then do have meaning. Then it's important to uncover what those symptoms mean. Yeah, would you
Yeah,
agree?
yeah. So like I think that after going through psychosis, it's important to like integrate basically and like there's things that you learn during the psychosis that then you have to like integrate and process, you know, because I think a lot of psychosis is like repressed stuff that's coming out, you know. We just don't know how to deal with it. That was my case. In my case, that was what was happening, you know. And I think that's probably why the second one wasn't as intense, is because I'd already processed some of the stuff from the first one. So the second one wasn't as bad because there wasn't as much stuff to come out, you know. Um, that's, I don't know. That's just my thought, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I also feel that, again, I was talking about you feel restricted by codes, and it's I feel because of these societal codes and ways of talking to people in like rules of social interaction and all of that, those those fine lines of rules that you have to follow when you're talking to somebody. In psychosis, you're like, bullshit balls to that. I don't want
Yeah.
to follow the rules, okay?
Right.
I will be hostile to somebody. I don't like their behavior. I'll be like, listen, okay, I'm not gonna take your bullshit. I don't like, I
Right.
mean, things like that. And
Right.
it's not me being uh it's not like symptoms have come up and the polite Polak has gone back inside. No, it's I've been dealing with this shit for too long, okay? And now
Right.
I'm telling you what I actually think. I'm being really honest to you now.
Right.
So I mean, I feel it's just all of that pressure of fitting in, of conforming, that just going away. And like, I don't care, okay? I'm
Right.
dealing with really difficult shit, so I better not try and do this drama that I'm doing to maintain an image, because I'm dealing with some real shit here, okay? So I better, hey,
Mhm.
listen, I don't like you, don't come and talk to me. I really want to figure this thing out, and things like that. So I feel,
Right.
yeah, I mean, that's what I mean, taking off from what you said, I for me it was similar, and it was like this, so
Mhm.
yeah. All right. uh Again, Dr. Daniel Lefo says that psychosis is an attempt to adapt to a terrible reality or unfavorable circumstances. It's an attempt or at making sense of unusual things happening in one life, like a defense mechanism.
Right.
So it's what she's saying is it's a survival instinct, and it's not a person shutting down. It's you trying to make sense and using logic. And people say delusions don't are irrational, are illogical, right? But what she's trying to say is no, the things that are happening in somebody's life, they're so out of the ordinary that he's trying to use whatever logic and rationale they can use to sort of make sense out of it. But the foundation is we're always trying to be rational and logical, uh,
Mhm.
because if we did not have that, you could give yourself any reason and be satisfied with it, but we keep on digging for a
Mhm.
rational and logical. Do you think this, I mean, delusions are not irrational in that sense?
No, I think there's always a reason for why people do stuff. You know, like so it may make sense to the person doing it, but it may not make sense to the people that are watching, but it'll make sense to the person that's doing it. You know, they're people don't do stuff for no reason. There's always a reason behind it.
Yeah.
You know.
All right, this is one of the sort of strategies we used, I mean, I used and a lot of other people did. So the fantasy of escape for a psychotic person is to be anonymous or a stranger in a strange land, like leaving their town, going back home, traveling. Did you use this defense mechanism? And if you did it work? Was it effective?
Um, what do you mean? I don't think I understand the question.
Uh, so a lot of psychotic people take relief in the fact that if I'm staying here, people know me, and if I just run away from here and go to a different town where I'm a stranger, you take relief in the fact nobody knows me here, and you seek those experiences. You travel more, you don't stay at one place, you leave your town or you go back home. did you do stuff like that to get away from the place where you are because you felt, okay, people know me here, I should travel, should go somewhere else?
Not specifically because people knew me or didn't know me in certain places, but I did travel to a place that I normally don't go to during my psychosis, and then I did go back home as well. So I didn't go. I didn't do that just because I think they didn't know me in other places. I think I just felt like I needed to go somewhere else. Like I was like, I'm just gonna keep driving. I don't even know where I went. Like I couldn't even, I wouldn't even be able to trace my steps back, if I tried to, because I don't even know how I got there. I just drove and I ended up somewhere.
Were you like Forrest Gump with the car?
Yeah, basically. I didn't go super far. Like it was only like 40 minutes away, but I ended up crashing my car over there. So
Oh, you did?
yeah,
Did
and
you
then
get injured or anything?
no, I didn't.
Oh, okay. So this is your first time. Oh, I have heard this. Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. You did not injure yourself. Yeah. Oh, I thought you were talking about something else.
Yeah, just the car was injured. So
Okay. Do you still
yeah.
have the same car? No?
No, the car got totaled.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you like emotional? I mean, it's not part of the question, of course. Were you emotionally attached to the car? Like, was it your first car or something? Like,
Yeah, it was my first car, so I felt bad. Like I liked that car. It was my first car. It was a manual, and you know, I miss driving standard, but you know, that's life, I guess. Maybe someday I'll have another standard car.
Okay. Okay. Did you often feel like a spy? This is very specific. Okay, you can just it's a single yes or no thing. Did you feel like a spy on an enemy territory that is being followed or surveilled? Did you use a lot of cryptic codes, ciphers, and secret language that only you could understand? Why, if you did, why did you do that?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I felt like I was on some kind of mission to save the world. I thought at some point that I like would drive a spaceship and like save the world from like some kind of apocalypse or something. Um, and I did use a lot of cryptic language, just because like I don't know why. I don't know why we do that. Like when we're in that state, it's like it it probably because it feels like it's a secret, and so we don't want to like, I don't know. Part of me felt like analogies were the best way. Analogies and metaphors were the best way to help people understand what I was getting to, or I felt like other people knew somehow and they weren't telling me, but I could like isolate or understand who knew and who wouldn't know based on their responses to like metaphorical questions. Um,
Okay.
and then that
It,
way,
yeah, isn't it weird that so many people get what you're saying in that metaphor? Like, oh yes, we are on board. I will help you, and they tell you something, and you follow on, understand it, and they understand the gravity of what you ask them. Like,
yeah,
is this the way to God? Yes, yes. If you go straight from here, take a left, you will meet God. He's waiting for you there.
yeah,
I mean,
pretty much, yeah.
oh my god, yeah, but that happened a lot, man. I also, this is okay, this is another weird thing that happened with me. Uh I tried to run away from my place to a hill station. Okay, and the friend that I went with was a he was my guide. He was a psychonaut, so he was using a lot of psychotropic drugs to just explore his mind. And I think he helped me. I was the new guy. Okay, so just trying to figure out harsher drugs. And I had become psychotic by then. And he was like, he didn't help me. He was like, hey, listen, if you're going to continue with this bullshit of yours, I am going to abandon you here. You know what? I'm going to abandon you here. Okay, goodbye. I'm leaving with this person, the dealer. And he left. So I started walking downhill. It's a long winding road on the hill. And I have my backpack and I planned a whole week, but now I've been abandoned. So I'm walking down. And what I see is, so there are cars coming up the hill, but then I turn around and they're all stopped. And I was wondering why all of them have stopped. Okay. And now I'm starting, okay, so now I'm going uphill. and I see all the cars have stopped, and I run to see the front of the car, and like the car in the front, there are no traffic lights or anything. It's a hill. There's nothing in front of it. So the moment I see, hey, there's no car in front of you, and it's like they immediately realize it when I tell them, and they start moving, and the whole line moves. I'm like, what the fuck? Why are 20 cars waiting when there's nobody in the front? And this kept happening. I was like, they were just playing this mind fuckery with me, and this. So I started writing poetry right then. Like ebb and flow of life, and cars and rivers and all that shit. Okay.
Mm.
And so every turn I'd see this, I'd write a poetry, I'd sit down and then I encountered one single guy. And this is about the metaphorical thing that I was talking to you about. So
Mm.
I met him, and well, he asked me to sit down because he saw that I was being very restless and all that. I was like, okay, fine, I'll sit. It's like, uh, and he, till date, I feel like he was, I mean, I know he was a regular guy who probably had some sort of insanity in him as well, because he was also talking in metaphors for some reason.
Mhm.
And so he sat down, he's like, son, why are you here? And I was like, I just came with my friend, to have fun at the hill and like smoke up and shit. Like, no, son, that's not what I'm asking. Why are you here? And I mean, if you keep on repeating the question, it becomes more profound. And I'm
Mhm.
like, bro, you gotta stop, man. I don't know why I'm here. And it's like, listen, this is not good for you. You better return to where you came from. And thing like he just said that much. And I was like, I just, if I can just, can I was pleading, negotiating with him, can I just go down and see the village and then go back? He's like, no, you have already caused a lot of trouble. You better go. So I took the bus straight back to where I came from.
Yeah.
And he was not threatening or anything. He had a smile on his face throughout. And he
Mm.
was he was such a peaceful face, like he had a halo around his head or something, man. And
Mm.
he just said these two things, he just kept poking me like, why do you think you're here? Why you here? And when I was like, bro, you gotta stop, he's like, listen, this has been overwhelming for you, and this is not, you've done damage. He said that, and he's like, you gotta go back. So I don't know what, I mean, what was he smoking, bro? Like, I know what I smoked. What were you smoking? So yeah, I don't know, man. I had a lot of these experiences, when people understand the metaphors and they reply to you, and they
Yeah.
just lead you.
Yeah, me too. I've had that happen too.
Do
I
you
was
wanna do
like,
you wanna share a fun incident if you can? Like, do you remember anything?
I don't remember anything specific, honestly. Like, I don't know. I remember it happening though. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. How are we doing on time, Hayden? Do we have only 10
Uh,
minutes left? No.
no, we have like 40 minutes left.
Oh, that's great. We are actually moving with great pace this time around. Okay. We have done till 11. 12th, I think I've already asked you. I'm just going to mark this as done. All right. So okay, now this is related to more. This is related to your hallucination and their nature, and all of that. The next set of questions.
Okay.
What kind of hallucinations did you experience? Auditory, visual, olfactory, and also did they happen together or separately?
I didn't have any auditory or sensory hallucinations. I only had two visual hallucinations. Um, Actually, no, I did have sensory hallucinations on the second one, but the first experience I had, I saw a dead person on the road, um, and then I saw like a whirlpool in a pond with like fish jumping out and a hawk flying down. Which someone who was with me, oh, I guess this is sort of like a story that was where like the other person was seeing the same thing I was. The person that was with me said, "Oh, look, it's a celebration for you," and like it seemed like he saw the whirlpool with me, like that he was seeing all the fish jump out of the pond and stuff. Um, so that was interesting. And then in my second experience, I got really cold, and it felt like I was, because that earlier that day I'd spoken with somebody in an Indian restaurant, and he said he came from like a lineage of like mystics or something like that, and he was speaking to us about how the person that he followed like basically went into a room and like just vanished, like just disappeared, like ascended into the spiritual realms or whatever, and was just gone. And he said that like sometimes when people start to leave their bodies get cold and stuff. And so I was experiencing like my body getting cold, and I was like, shit, like I don't want to leave my body, I want to stay here. So that might have been something that I brought on myself, but that was something that I experienced. And then I saw a vision of like a group of people like walking in like a V formation, sort of like geese, where there's like a leader and then they're sort of flying together. And I saw myself walking in the front, and sort of like the image was like that. I would be one of the people among other people of this generation that would like lead the generation to like a new era of like transformation or something like that. So that wasn't so much a hallucination. It was more just like a visual that I saw like in my mind, I guess.
Right.
So
Uh, okay. You mentioned you did not have any auditory hallucination, right?
mhm,
So you did not hear voices other than your own voice?
mhm.
Okay. So I think this question, I'll still ask, okay? If it doesn't apply to you, we can move further. Did you
Okay.
just hear voices, or were there non-verbal auditory hallucination as well? For example, musical loops, barking of dogs, clicking, murmuring, etc.
None of those
None
things.
of those things, right? So I'll just move on. Okay. Which is, I mean, it is a unique experience then, because most of the participants that I am interviewing, all of them majorly had auditory hallucination and visual in very few cases. So yeah.
Really? Yeah. I mean, I think I might have had like one or two, but I can't really determine if it was like me trying to make a sound appear or if it was actually a sound appearing. Like I couldn't really tell if it was like, because I was like I sort of I've had like kind of a connection with Hanuman, because the Hanuman showed up in a dream like before my psychosis, and like told me that if I meditated I could become like one of them or something like that. And he like sort of put his hand over my head, and I like felt what it would feel like to be in like a meditative state and sort of like expanded state. And so when I was sitting in the car, I thought I heard like a monkey, like a, like how monkeys sound, they're like or whatever. And so I was like, what the heck? But I don't know if that was like me trying to like hear that, or if that was actually something that I heard. So I might have had minor auditory hallucinations, but they were super minor. They weren't very obvious.
Okay, so a scientific theory that Charles Forney, which is a scientist who's working on a phenomena we'll talk about later, because it's a new phenomenon altogether. But what he says is, uh, in people who in psychotic people, what happens is, uh, you produce the voices, even if you have auditory hallucination, you produce it yourself, but the faculty that recognizes it as your own voice is sort of damaged. So uh, you do produce it yourself, but you attribute it to an external source, and then you say, okay, it's coming from the outside. And that's a scientific theory, you can agree or not agree with it, but he said
Yeah.
uh, that's the main distinguishing thing between a psychotic person and the other person who's not psychotic, is they produce the speech inside their head, but they do recognize it as their own, so they're not
Right.
troubled by it. But in our case, we do produce it, but we don't recognize it, so we're like, it's coming from the outside, or it's my neighbor, it's my parents, or it's something, you attribute it to something that in your real life. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, that's just a theory. I'm not completely in agreement with it, but it could be a good explanation.
I think there's some truth to that, because it's the feedback loop. I think that's part of what makes us like not able to come back down, is because like we think that everything that we think is like a revelation or like an understanding of something that like, is truth and stuff. So I that makes sense. I also remember another like physical, like sensual hallucination. I like believed and felt that like my legs didn't work. Like I like couldn't use my legs. So I had to like crawl back to my room. I was in the hospital at the time, but like I couldn't like use my legs. They like put me in a wheelchair because I was like, I can't use my legs.
And they took your word for it? Like they put you in a
Yeah.
wheelchair?
I mean, I like I was behaving in a way that showed that I like couldn't walk, and so I just, they put me on the bed and put like an ice pack on my knee, and then like 2 hours later, I was walking around again.
It's a miracle, man. It's a
Yeah.
miracle. Like 2 hours ago you couldn't walk and now you can walk, man. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, jokes apart, dude. Gosh, what was I saying? Okay, external source and me not buying into it, and then God, I completely forgot. What were we discussing before this? I mean, it's not a part of the questionnaire. I felt I could discuss it with you. Uh,
Hallucinations.
yes, hallucinations. Um, okay, it's not gonna come. No, one
If
of
it comes later, just let me know.
yeah, sure. Uh, okay, like okay, let's talk about visual hallucination. I think it's gonna come back if once we're discussing this. Uh, in visual hallucination, so in my case, what happened in visual hallucinations and what generally happens is you you have a hallucination but you're not able to distinguish what is real and what is hallucination, what is reality. In my case, that wasn't the case. It was kind of like in our head when we think, right? We use a lot of devices. We use thoughts, we use verbal devices, we use uh shorthand short acronyms, and we use mental imagery, right? So in
Mhm.
my case, it wasn't as much as me seeing something there, but imagining like as a mental imagery
Mhm.
and projecting it outside. But I could
Mhm.
distinguish, this is my mental imagery that I'm projecting outside, and this is the real thing. It wasn't a hallucination in like scientific terms. It's not, it's different. It's kind of like something has been drawn on my specs and I'm seeing the world through that lens, but I know what is being drawn and what is real. Was it
Mhm.
with you, was it similar, or was it like a typical hallucination in your case?
It was like the visual hallucinations were like actual visual hallucinations. Like
Okay.
yeah, like it wasn't like there wasn't like an overlapping reality or anything like that. It was like visually like I saw a whirlpool happening like in the pond. I that didn't feel created at all. Like I don't know, it just kind of happened. Like maybe it was created. It's hard to tell because like my mom like was very against me experiencing that. She like brought me to the pond and was like, see, it's not a whirlpool. I'm like, great, thanks for that. Thanks for listening to my experience. She I think she was just struggling a lot with it, and she was trying to like understand her own sanity, like she was struggling
Right.
with with the whole thing. So she didn't really know what to do. So she was just trying to delete it.
But while you're talking to yourself in your psychotic state, I do remember the question. Okay, the question is this: so is it like a huge monologue that is being read, or is it like a dialogic back and forth question answer thing where there are two sides to it, and there's always a back and forth. Okay, so what about this? Okay, I'll answer this, and things like that. What was closer to your experience?
It was more of like it was like part of me was still just me. Like there was part of me throughout the whole experience that was still just Hayden. Like there was an observer, someone who didn't change the whole time. But then there was another part of me that was affected by the symptoms, the psychosis, and stuff like that. That was maybe not behaving in the most rational way and stuff like that. But part of me was still like monitoring and sort of controlling my responses of how things were happening. Because when they put me on drugs that basically took away the observer, I became much more wild, much more crazy because there was no one to monitor or like sort of supervise what was happening like in my own mind. And so I started doing more crazy things, and they're like, wow, you were like really crazy. And I'm like, well, I wasn't there to monitor what was happening, that you took that out with the medication. And it wasn't like medication that they would use for um, people with psychosis. I think it was just something to like knock you out, like just gone, like just take your consciousness away.
Okay.
Um, so I don't know. I just remember coming to, like, I remember like coming to consciousness, and I remember just like knocking over a pea jar like on the countertop, which is not something I would have done if I was there. It was like I woke up as I was knocking it off the counter, and I was like, what's going on here? Like I woke up, I was like, what the fuck just happened? Why did that just happen?
Right.
So there it was more of an interaction of like, okay, this is what I'm thinking, and then this is what I'm gonna act on or not act on. I had like choices to be able to like, oh, this is something that's happening, and this is my choice I'm gonna take on this. You
Okay.
know, yeah.
All right. There's a question about your first. Wait. Uh, I think there's a question here about your first psychotic breakdown, but you have gone into it in quite detail in your YouTube video. So I might just as well take it from there, if you don't mind.
Okay, okay, that's
Because
fine.
yeah, because there are more questions, and I don't want to waste more of your time.
Okay.
Uh, all right. Okay. Would you call the nature of your delusions spiritual? And were you always a spiritual person even before psychosis?
Yeah, I was a spiritual person before psychosis. I think like there's no distinguishing for me what's spiritual and not spiritual. I think our everyday existence is spiritual. I think a psychosis is spiritual, not because psychosis is more spiritual than not being in a psychosis. I think it's just maybe people are more aware of it being a spiritual experience, or having that being alive is a spiritual experience because you're seeing the world from a different perspective and you have different feelings. So from that fresh perspective, things seem more spiritual, more alive, more real in some ways because like it's a new perspective. But I think living in ordinary life every day is just as spiritual as being in a psychosis or being in a like on a mushroom trip or anything. Everything that we experience is a spiritual experience. It's just that when you're used to the same thing over and over again, it just seems dull, but it really isn't. It's still, we're still in the universe, and we're still like spirits in our bodies that are having these experiences. That's my take on it.
Okay, this is what I'm getting from you. Okay, and tell me if I'm wrong.
Mhm.
Do you think life in itself is a really spiritual and it's it's good enough? Sort of, it's a very profound experience in itself that you don't have to seek, go looking for some other thing like this. It's all the fact that we exist, the fact that we are on a planet which is out of 8 planets that revolves around the sun, which is not that significant in the whole galaxy thing. Like, I mean, it's all so magical, and in like living sense it's really spiritual. But in order to we start you do you start valuing life, like small things in life or life in general, a lot more once you come out of psychosis? Do you think
Mhm.
people don't pay attention to that? Like, do you think they're ungrateful or something like that? Like, do you think, or they're just not aware, or they haven't
I don't
uh
think I don't think they're aware about like how magical, like, or how like beautiful this existence, just existing and having this experience is. Like it's very deep. Like it's a very deep experience. Like existence itself is like a very deep experience. I don't think that like me sitting here is like it there's so much more. Like what you see right here is like so much. It's just the tip of the iceberg, just for everybody. Like we have this physical body, but like we're tied to the whole universe. Like even if even if it's like as simple as like if I drink water, that water is going to come through me. I'm going to pee it into the toilet. It's going to go out to the rest of the world. It's going to connect eventually to someone. You might drink my pee, like
yeah.
in, I don't know, like a year from now. you know?
Yeah, if you force me and bully me into picking up, I just might have to because you're stronger and 1 year older to me. But don't do that, man. I mean, okay, I get your point. But yeah,
But you
yeah,
know, this is a dirty example, but like,
no, no, it's not. It's not.
but we're all like connected in that way, and like that's just on a physical level, but also like on a metaphysical level or like a spiritual level. Like we have this body, but like our souls are like experiencing this body, but our souls are also connected to source and connected to everything else from creation, you know? And
Right.
so this existence itself is like just an experience of that unfolding of consciousness, that unfolding of the whole universe. So when we die, this experience is going to be retained in its fullness. Every single little detail, every single thought, every single action, every single like like shit we took on the toilet, every single like eyebrow we picked off of our face because it fell on our cheek is going to be remembered. That those are all like, and not only can be remembered, they're going to be remembered in like much more profound detail than what we were aware of in this conscious state in this existence.
Right.
Well, because like the whole soul is invested in this, the whole universe is, the whole creator is invested in every single one of us because we are the creator, we are part of all that. And so to say that like one experience is more mystical or more magical than another experience, I think is quite ignorant. I don't think that it's right to say for people to not explore, because exploring is an important thing to do because it helps people to realize. I think eventually all spiritual, like people who pursue spirituality and try to understand like where they are in the universe, eventually the conclusion comes down to, wow, like this experience that I have in ordinary reality is actually the most magical thing I could have possibly imagined. That's pretty much like most high level spiritual traditions will say like the most profound thing that could ever happen is just being alive. That's like super profound. You know,
Yeah.
that's like usually what it comes down to. And the simplest thing is what they attribute to happiness, which is usually just breathing, you know, just
Yeah.
enjoy breathing. That is like, for them, that's the epitome of like just bliss, is just breathing, you know.
Yeah.
It's like the simplest thing that you could possibly do
Yeah.
is what they equate with happiness to some degree, you know.
Yeah. That's
So
true.
that's usually where like the search and the exploration comes to at the end. You know, if you do mushrooms, you do plant medicine, you do meditation, you do yoga, comes back to this is this is awesome. You know,
Yeah.
this is an experience. This is the development. This is the growth.
Yeah. That's deep, man. That's also wonderful, man. Wonderfully put. Yeah. I
Yeah.
have nothing to say. I'm speechless, man. Yeah. And this is going as is. Okay. Are
So
you?
I think
Yeah. Yeah. So you were
go
saying?
ahead. No, go ahead. I was gonna say that I think psychosis, like, it grants the opportunity to maybe see that, but the person has to be willing to look at that and figure that out for themselves. Because you can have a psychosis and then just reject it all and be like, I do not want to experience that. I do not want to like even think about that experience or do anything with it. And so then you lose the experience of doing, um, or you lose the potentials of learning from that experience. But it's just like anything, any experience you have, you're going to learn from it, but you actually have to like extract the meaning and the lessons from that.
Yeah.
Like if you get abused, if your father was abusive, or like anything like that, you suffered some kind of thing. Some people would be like, this is like the worst thing that's ever happened to me, and it is, on some level. But if you look at it from a different perspective and be like, yes, this was terrible and this was difficult and it was really not cool that this happened, but I'm going to learn something from this, I'm going to grow from this, and I'm going to move forward with this experience and become a better person because of what I've experienced. That's a different sort of approach. And if you do the same with psychosis, I think there's lessons to be learned, just like there's lessons from being abused, or having bad experiences with stuff that was difficult. There's positives and experiences in psychosis too. So you learn from your positive experiences, but most people learn from the things where they made mistakes or learn from the things that were hard because that's what people tend to focus on. You know,
I know.
so
Yeah. I mean, saying something, I'm probably saying something similar, but on a spiritual level, I feel in all of our lives, uh, the time is fucked up, and I feel your suffering precedes the I mean suff- the fact that you are in pain and that you suffer is not good enough for your authenticity, is what I feel your suffering precedes the meaning that you add to it later by acting on, you know like you fall, but it retroactively creates a position where you were standing. You were not standing before, but while you're falling, a position comes up where you're standing, and you like try and get up from there, use all the tools that you have to get to that position, and like give some meaning to that suffering, like give some suffering in itself doesn't have meaning, is what I'm trying to say. Is It's like the psychosis, for example, in my case, is a very harrowing, was a very sort of difficult experience. But after the experience, I did a lot of, I tried to understand what it was, like you said, try to accept it, acknowledge it, and not just ignore it. And
Yeah.
then try to make something of my life wherein, when I look back, that psychosis gets to have some meaning and gets to have some significance. If I don't do anything about it, and if I just go about living my life the way it was before psychosis, then the psychosis was for nothing. And again, it did not uh like change significantly the way I live my life. So I feel and it's not just psychosis, like even with intense experiences, the suffering comes before you working on it and adding meaning to it. I mean, that's just what I sort of feel. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What do you mean by meaning? What do you mean by there's no meaning?
uh
Because I think we might have different definitions of meaning.
right. So okay, I'll tell you why I'm saying meaning, because I went to a rehab, okay, and this is a strategy that they're using in the rehab. What they say is, you are a different person on drugs,
Hmm.
and you otherwise are a very nice person. And what you have to do is the drugs were a temptation that were tempting you in a different direction, and you got to get your life back together. Don't take the guilt, don't take responsibility of whatever you did in that state. Forget it. uh, Start your life anew, and don't dig in deeper in that experience, or don't look at it. Okay, it's not your fault, it's the temptation that was, you were a different person altogether. That's the narrative, and that's the sort of reform approach that they use. So they're actually in a very short, they're asking you to take the chicken's way out, right? In my case, I loved doing drugs. Okay, I was a very obedient and studious kid, top of my class till 12th standard. Once I
Hmm.
came to college, I was like, I'm yes man. I'm gonna say yes to everything. Okay, like if you say, do you want to do drugs? Yes. Do you want to do harder drugs? Yes, I want to. So I did it because, not for the same reasons as everybody else. I wasn't doing it because, hanging out with college seniors and, networking and maybe, just chilling. No, I did it to explore the altered state of consciousness and to understand myself better and to introspect deeply to the fact which is not pleasant. Nobody should do it if you're not up for it, and I took responsibility for my decision, is what I'm saying. I'm saying I like doing drugs. Of course, these are the consequences of my decision, but that was my decision. In my right mind, I took it. So I take
Right.
responsibility for it. And if you don't, then that experience has no meaning, is what I'm trying to say.
Hmm.
So so that's okay. I did not know the consequences of my actions before all of this
Hmm.
happened. I was not up for it. I was just thrown into the midst, and just I asked to make sense of it and like figure my way out. I did that. And if I come out of it and then ignore it and then do whatever I was doing earlier, makes no sense, and I don't add meaning to that experience. If I take
Right.
responsibility for it, and learn from it and accept, even if you have to forgive yourself for doing drugs, which I completely, I'm not a moralistic person. I don't
Hmm.
see, the way I see morals and ethics is different. I create my own. I don't go by conventional morality. I create my own morals and ethics. I create my own rights and wrongs.
Mhm.
So, and this, what I'm saying, doing my own rights and wrongs, not going by conventional morality, all came from that experience itself. It's not like I was always this person and this happened. No, this happened. I had to understand why this happened, and I
Mhm.
took responsibility for the decision I took before understanding the consequences. And so I've
Mhm.
added meaning to it. So now if I tell people the whole trajectory, I'd say, uh, I mean, it's like Usman, like you go back into the past and tell that person, okay, you took this decision, these are the consequences, but I have made up for it in the future, so it's okay. That sort of a thing.
Mhm.
Do
Mhm.
I make sense? To
Yeah, you make sense. Yeah, I don't know about their approach on helping people get off of drugs.
that sucks.
It doesn't
They
sound that's not how I would approach helping somebody get off of drugs.
Yeah, that's
Because
why they have such a bad relapse rate, man. Like people go
it's
back again
that's a,
three four
yeah,
times.
it's a terrible approach. Like they've got it all wrong.
Yeah,
Like
it is,
from
man.
my experience with like helping me, because I've had addictions too. They weren't to drugs. They were to like um, video games and stuff like that. And I've tried a lot of different approaches, but it was all trial and error with me. And if I did that, what they said, that was a guaranteed relapse. Guaranteed. If I tried to
Yeah,
do exactly what they did, would not work, because the thing is, if you don't address the issue, if you don't address why you're doing it and what's happening when you do it, and actually acknowledge your feelings and forgive yourself for when you do relapse again, then you're going to do it again, because you don't have the coping mechanisms, you don't have the understanding, you don't have the new framework built around you to make sure that doesn't happen again. Now I play video games, but it's a healthy relationship because I've consulted that relationship and I'm able to do it in a way that's more productive rather than destructive. But like their approach is like terrible.
yeah,
Like
it's terrible.
I'm 27 year old. I'm 27 years old. I've never had any official training in mental health, and I could help those people better than that system
You
could.
could, you could. I
Yes.
mean, it's not just you saying. I completely support that. Uh,
Yes.
and
It's
it's
a
it's
big
it's it's hella expensive, dude. It's. I come from a upper middle class family, and most of them were like really rich people. Uh,
yeah.
and I had to pay tons of money for staying there for 3 months, and this is their approach, man. This is what it is. It's really. I
That's
mean, what's stopping me from getting to drugs again? Saying, "Oh, the drugs tempted me again." I'm sorry, they're just so they were provocative. They were wearing skimpy clothes and shit like that. I mean, I can get back into it again and again if I'm not taking responsibility for it, right? I mean,
Yeah, you
if
have to take responsibility. I can't believe that they say don't take responsibility. That it's not the drugs that are doing it. You're making that choice.
yes,
Like
yes,
that is your decision.
yeah.
That's terrible. I can't believe they're robbing people of money, and like
That's
that
yeah.
they should get in trouble for that. That's literally like just stealing people from their money.
It's yeah, I mean it is. That's why, what do you think we should do about the way we treat and all of that? I'm going to add this there. I mean, the questions you answer later, but I'm going to put them there. But yeah,
Yeah.
uh, it is what it is, man. You can't like you got to change something from the grassroots. Yeah, I think I've we have okay. I think you got to go, right?
9 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, let's not pick up another question. And I mean, I think I should probably end it before and give you some breathing space. We will have. Are you okay with another session? I will. You know what? I have questions around 10 to 15. I'm going to shorten them, pick out
Okay.
the ones which are specifically for you are relevant.
Okay.
Like for example, the auditory hallucination one was not. So I'm going to pick out the relevant ones, do five or
Okay.
six, finish it early, and
Okay.
yeah, man. Then again, whatever it is that I can do for you, I will do. You know.
Okay.
Eh,
Yeah. But it'd be fun to make a video together, and then I just post
Sure.
it on my channel.
So
Yeah.
so do you don't do? I mean, it's not going to be scripted, right?
Mm-mm.
But it's going to be thematic in terms of because we really go into tangents and we dive deep. So it's going to be like thematically consistent. Like we're talking about the first psychotic break, or we're talking about medication only, or okay, it's up to you, man. It's not,
We
see,
can
you are
we can
not
talk about.
guiding my research. You didn't ask me to do my research my way, so I'm going to let you do your thing your way. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, but
And
I'll tell you what it'll be. I mean, like, I'll ask you if there's anything that like particular, like before we start, I'll ask you if there's anything particular that you want to share, and then we'll start on that conversation. And as that conversation develops, it'll branch off into other things. So like, um, I'm not like trying to control the conversation or like steer it in a certain way. Like I may have like if something comes up, I'll be like, oh, that's an interesting question. Let me ask you about that. Then I'll
Right.
ask you, and then you can ask me stuff. Like it's not like it's more of a podcast than it is like oh I want to cover these points. You know, it's more of like a dialogue because my goal is for people to feel like they can relate with people who have gone through the psychosis. So my goal is to just have a conversation. It doesn't have to be scripted, you know.
Okay.
My goal is that humanity shines through the conversation, that it's not like scripted and like this is what I want them to hear, this is what I want you to hear kind of thing. You know, it's
Right.
just got to be natural.
Yes.
So
I respect that. Yes.
so
So
it'll be fun. Just relax and just we're just having a conversation that's being recorded.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in my like my interview was nothing like that. We had spaces where we were conversational and we were just being ourselves. But I think a more relaxed thing would be to just let it go the way it is. Like yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it'll be different because yours is for research, whereas
yeah.
mine is more
Mine is for a
for
degree. If I don't get it, I'm not gonna get a like move further in this field or get a job, and you know how it is. So
right,
yeah.
right. So it's a different mindset for both. So and that it's not a good or bad thing. That's just the way it is, you know.
But wouldn't you say this time around it was better than the last time? Like,
Yeah, because you just asked me the questions. Last time you were like you were sort of like telling some of your story, which is cool, but like generally like in a research setting, you
yeah.
want to just like ask the questions and not have much input because
Did
you don't
that
want to influence the answers, you know?
did that piss you off a little bit? You're like, hey man, shut up, let me answer the question.
Well, I mean,
Come
it's not
on.
my research,
Right.
so like I was gonna let you do what you want to do, but like if I were doing research, I would basically not say anything like of my experience, and then just ask them the questions, because my experience by sharing is gonna influence their decisions or the way they answer, you know.
Right. Okay. I'll be honest with you. I'll tell you why I do this with you specifically. I don't do this for everybody else. So
Mm,
it's an autoethnographic research, right? So I'm what I'm doing is I'm interpreting what people are saying. So I just ask
mm,
them questions. They say something not very clearly, like in terms of their expressive capability, and I
mm,
don't probe them. I interpret what they're trying to say. In your case, I am leading you. I admit I do lead you sometimes, like saying that medications are not good. Of course they're not good. You think they're good? No, not good. But I do lead you. But because I lead you because I know you are I understood when you said that it's okay. You don't have to agree. I don't have to agree with you. You don't have to agree with me. I understood that you are strong as a pillar in terms of what you think. So no
mm.
amount of me probing, leading is going to change. It's only going to bring out what you believe in more strongly, is
Yeah,
and that's what happened.
yeah,
So
that's true. You're
so
right about that.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't have to interpret you. I just have to probe you further to bring out that point and just write it verbatim. I'm not going to change
Mm,
anything in the research. Whatever I have said, I've shared is
mm,
out, and whatever you have shared is going to be helping me to sort of make a point. And I will not be interpreting what you say because you have a very strong point and you express yourself really clearly and you are very self-aware, like I said before.
mm.
So uh, it's going to be either it's well verbatim what you said, or it's a strong contrary stance. So if I believe in something, I tried my best to shake you and say, hey, come on my side. No, you did not. So
Right,
I will put what you said as a strong contrary stance. This is what I feel, but
right.
there's this person who has this stance, and
Mm,
I'll put it there. Like we don't have to come to a conclusion in every space. That's what is
right,
best about being psychotic, right? You can deal in confusion and inconclusive, discussions.
right.
So this is what I was doing behind. I might not seem like I'm doing all of this, but this is what I was. So that's why I was talking a lot with you and sort of irritating you or whatever, just pushing you around a little bit.
Mm.
And yeah. That's my rationale for doing that. And I think
That makes sense.
it didn't make any difference to what you had to say. Honestly,
No,
it
it
didn't make it didn't.
no,
Yeah.
it does. Yeah,
There
yeah,
there it
yeah.
is. And
Yeah, because the way I view things is like I've thought about it a lot, so it's not like I'm like, maybe I'm wrong, you know. Like
yeah, yeah.
it's been interesting talking with you because like every person I talk to, I learn something new, or I have a different perspective thinking about it because everybody, sees things in a different way. So I always learn things. So like my perspective after talking with you is going to change a little bit. It always will. No matter who I talk with, my perception is going to change. But I think you're right. Like with me, it's not going to change much no matter like how much you share.
Right.
But like with someone else who maybe more influenced, it maybe may influence their answers.
Yeah,
So
so
I think
I don't influence them. I don't push them. I just ask them the
yeah,
question.
yeah. So then you read me perfectly fine then.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
why see if I see 50 of your videos, I know the like who what I'm getting into.
yeah.
They don't call me a researcher for nothing, Hayden. But you're 27, right? Do you think like when I was 26, I was a dumb kid. Now I'm 27. Like whatever I did at 26 was stupid. And at 26, at 25, I thought I was like really, I had gotten my shit together, but no, 25 me was stupid. So I think that is also a little bit factoring in our research. It's like I'm 27, he's 26. So when I was 26, I was dumb. He's also dumb. But that's okay, man. Love talking to you. It was great interaction. I'll try to keep the last one short, and then you can schedule your video whenever it is. I'll be available anytime. As you can see, it's
Okay.
3 a.m. right now here. Time doesn't. I'm a night owl. I will wake up early. I'll do whatever you tell me and
Okay.
let me know. Okay.
All right. Well, I want to make sure that you're not too stressed either, though. So I'll just let me know like when you have time because I know you have a big project coming up. So because there's no rush, I'm not in a hurry to like
Yeah,
get
yeah,
content or something.
yeah.
So if there's a time window that's better for you, because I want you to feel comfortable. I don't want you to feel like, oh shit, like I have to go talk to Hayden now and I'm super tired and stuff. I want you to
Right.
feel like rested and feel like you're coming from a good space. Because it should be fun, it shouldn't feel like a burden. So when we wrap up, like when we finish the last part of the interview, then you can just sort of we'll stay in touch and you just let me know like um, when is a good time or
Sure.
um,
I will. Keeping in mind whenever you're free from 2 p.m. right, and 12:30 works for me. So I mean I will let you know what dates I'm free, but I will let you know. Okay, let me not make that I'm free all the time because I mean I literally am not, but I will let you know. Sure.
okay, cool, sounds good.